morning sun, how are you? Skies above, geez, great to be alive and love.
There is new video of the tornado that slammed the South Australian town of Penola. The twister reached 200 k's an hour.
Tornado that devastated the southeast town of Kingston yesterday.
The storm has ripped through Horsham, damaging dozens of homes and bringing down trees. Jane Bunn joins us now. And Jane, this was actually a tornado.
Mike, the Weather Bureau has analysed the data and can confirm that it was a tornado.
Tornadoes. Undeniably one of the world's most destructive and violent forces of nature. It is common in places like America.
Power line just went. Yeah, you watch the.
Wait, was that Australia? The land down under is famous for a lot of different things. One of those things is that it's generally considered a really great and safe place to live. Except for those deadly animals, of course. Nah, they're alright. You might know it also for its beautiful blue waters, crystal clear skies, the occasional inferno, but mostly really great weather. It's also often been said that Australia is always hot, but that is not the case. Australia experiences various types of weather, including those intense supercellular storms that produce a lot of electricity and large balls of hail. And yes, we even get snow. Even in summer, which is a little bit weird. But, like I said, we do get very varied weather here in Australia. Now, what you might be wondering with all that crazy weather is, do we get tornadoes in Australia? Well, the answer to that question is yes, we do. But it would be completely forgiven if you weren't aware of that. A survey done recently on Australians found that even many of us are not aware that we can get these devastating tornadoes here. We call them such diminishing terms as a willy, dust devil, even cyclone has been used incorrectly, or a mini tornado. It's also been found that 5% of respondents believe that we did not get tornadoes here at all. A lot of the confusion around Australian tornadoes is the fact that these events have often been misrepresented and underreported. Trying to Google search for them, you will find a lot of broken links and just a rather general lack of information. But with a bit of a deeper dig, which I've mostly done for you, you'll find that Australia actually has a quite extensively documented tornadic history, dating back as far as 1795. Now you see that a lot of the events are concentrated around the edge of the land. This is also because this is where the population is concentrated as well. There's less people in the middle of Australia and no radar equipment there, so the events there are completely undocumented. But for what it's worth, and without further ado, here is the documented tornadic histories of Australia. The 1795 Sydney tornado is the earliest recorded Australian tornado listed in the Bureau of Meteorology archives. Occurring during early settlement times, the unrated tornado did damage to crops and trees, but spared people as there were fortunately 0 casualties. The 1837 Port Phillip tornado travelled over 60 miles from Port Phillip to Geelong and as far north as Mount Macedon, causing extensive damage and uprooting trees. Not much is known, but there was 0 casualties and no rating given for this tornado. The 1841 Parramatta tornado in New South Wales touched down west of Sydney. Whilst this tornado also did not cause any casualties, it did cause extensive damage to the town, uprooting trees and damaging homes, schools and churches. This tornado also did not receive a rating. In the year 1844, the Murrumbidgee area near Gundagai, New South Wales was experiencing a large storm system causing extensive flooding and producing multiple tornadoes. On the 9th of October, a tornado caused major damages to forested areas. Described as severe, it was noted to devastate everything in its path. Nothing could resist its fury, it was said. Trees of immense diameter were twisted and large branches hurled enormous distances. Ironically, the day after the birth of Christ in Australia, the devil came to play. On December 26, 1848, the Devil's River tornado traversed across farmland and a slaughter of the lamb ensued. Numerous livestock were killed by the ferocious winds and large hailstones. There were no human deaths recorded, but it was reported that 3 settlers were injured. On the 26th of November 1849, the town of Weewa in New South Wales was hit by a tornado. Huts had their roofs removed and trees were uprooted. Reaching the outskirts of Bathurst, the 5th of January 1852, Campbell's River tornado in New South Wales left a path of destruction through farmland and forests. Travelling from Minmi to Hexham and Waratah, this tornado uprooted trees and threw wagons into the air as it made its way towards the sea. The Chetwynd tornado was a large and powerful vortex that travelled along the tributary of the Glenelg River towards Harrow. It lifted large debris into the air, including uprooting large diameter gum trees out of the ground and lifting poles and other debris, hurling them several miles away from their original location. An article published at the time included an excerpt from an eyewitness who recounted the details of the events that occurred in Chetwynd. He also included details of the injuries that were sustained by the victims of this storm, oftentimes in graphic detail. One of the survivors, the woman thrown in the tornado, also had a baby, which was found underneath a tree in a nook, which ultimately kept it safe and unharmed. Unfortunately, this violent tornado did claim the life of one person. Travelling from Lindsay at the South Australia border, this tornado caused extensive damage to the town of Hamilton, Victoria. It damaged several buildings before turning east, where it uprooted trees and took the roofs off of multiple homes. 2 churches were destroyed as well as several businesses. Thankfully, everybody survived. The Maryborough tornado of 1864 cut a path of destruction from Maryborough to Creswick and Bullarook, north of Ballarat, damaging buildings and throwing trees through the air. One of those trees struck and killed a father and his son, and numerous others were injured. Beechworth suffered large damages to trees and houses as a destructive tornado moved through in 1865. Schools and churches were demolished and houses de-roofed. A man died when his dwelling collapsed on top of him. The Bowen tornado was the first Australian tornado to receive an official rating, and it was a hefty number 5 on the Fujita scale. An F5 described as destructive, it caused severe damage to the town of Bowen, damaging and destroying many buildings, including the Bowen Hospital, where many patients were injured and 1 death was reported. On the 19th of November 1897, a large, violent tornado went on a 250-kilometre rampage across northwest Victoria. Unfortunately, the town of Neil would take a direct hit, being almost completely wiped off the map. Every church and most of the houses were obliterated. The town of Donald was also heavily hit, suffering extensive damages, including the levelling of a church and a school, and the loss of one of their own when a person was killed. The tornado went on to take 2 more lives in the neighbouring town of Maryborough, and do more damage in Rupunya. Sporting a rather fitting name, the Nevertire tornado carved a path of destruction 14 miles long. It left many people injured, but thankfully no deaths were reported. The 2nd of December 1900 Narrabri, New South Wales tornado was destructive and cost an estimated £8,000 in damages. No injuries or deaths were reported. This time, Narrabri, New South Wales was hit much harder. On the 6th of January 1902, only a few buildings were undamaged. A railway goods shed was destroyed, and there was a report of 1 fatality. In the August of 1909, Ballarat was experiencing a flooding event when a tornado touched down and trekked across the city. It destroyed numerous houses in the north of Ballarat, Soldiers Hill, Black Hill, and eastern Ballarat, lifting into the sky before touching down again when it got to Eureka, destroying several more homes before finally dissipating. There was 1 death reported and a total of 7 injuries. This photograph is actually the very first time that an Australian tornado was captured on camera. A man named Mr. C. Hoskin just happened to have been in his backyard with his camera at the time that this tornado passed through the town of Morong on the 27th of September 1911 in the state of Victoria. It was rated as likely reaching F3 intensity and was said to have picked up speed and ferocity as it travelled. This tornado caused critical damage to the towns of Morong and Lockwood, claiming 1 life and injuring 12 other people. It was said in local papers at the time that the sky turned a shade of dark blue to black, and that at points this tornado simply swept everything clear of its path. The 1918 Brighton storm in Victoria produced a total of 3 observed tornadoes and is known locally as the Brighton cyclone. See the incorrect terminology. Nevertheless, these 3 violent tornadoes let their presence be known in Brighton, a suburb in the city of Melbourne. There was even a point where 2 of the tornadoes crossed each other's path, creating a veritable orgy of destruction, as it was described. The event only lasted minutes, but was able to claim the lives of 2 people and injure many others. Recorded wind speeds were estimated to have reached 320 kilometers an hour, making this the most intense recorded tornado to hit a major Australian city to date. Damages were estimated at 100 to 150,000 pounds at the time, and the tornado, at least one of them, was rated as an F3 intensity. On the 9th of January 1921 in Port Arlington, Victoria, a tornado and waterspout joined forces to terrorise the area of Corio Bay, moving east to strike Port Arlington and St Leonards, before ending its journey in Port Phillip. The Grand Hotel was damaged, as well as several houses and a church. There were reports of people being carried up to 40 feet into the air, but remarkably, there were no casualties. Moving east from the Western District, the Geelong tornado came to strike Lismore, a town in the southwest of Victoria. With winds reaching speeds up to 250 kilometers an hour, it left a trail of ruins in its wake, tearing trees out of the ground, before turning east and making its way towards Geelong and the suburb of Highton. I guess it liked the number 2, because here it bulldozed 2 churches, 2 halls, and 2 houses, plus a few other buildings. It also terrorized the towns of Marshall and Belmont, where 7 homes were destroyed. Throughout its lifespan, it caused 1 death, and a reported 20 to 30 injuries. The 1954 Dwelling Up Western Australia tornado went on a 10-kilometre or 6.2 mile trek through the Jarrah forest. It was reported to reach 200 metres or 660 feet wide near Lyle's Mill and was rated as an F3. In 1962, in Port Macquarie, New South Wales, a strong waterspout made landfall, causing widespread damages and the death of 3 people when a house collapsed on top of them. A man was killed in the 1964 Busselton tornado in Western Australia when the car he was travelling in was pulled off the road.
Bulahdelah was worst hit by the weather violence. A tornado swept out of the northern sky with 80-mile-an-hour winds and hailstones like cricket balls slashing across the northern part of Timber Town.
On the 1st of January 1970, Bulahdelah, New South Wales, was hit with what is believed to be one of the most powerful tornadoes in recorded Australian history. The damage path of this destructive force of nature was 21 kilometres long, or 13 miles, and 1.6 kilometres, or 0.99 miles, almost a mile wide. It carved this path through the Bulahdelah State Forest, where it is estimated to have destroyed almost 1 million trees. According to reports, a 2-ton tractor was thrown 100 metres or 330 feet into the air, landing upside down. During its reign of terror, it also caused the death of 4 people. And whilst this tornado was never given an official rating, it is considered to be a contender for F5. 3 people were killed by a tornado that tore through the small community of Kin, which lies between Gympie and Noosa near Brisbane in Queensland. The storm that produced this tornado occurred on the 14th of August 1971 and was also associated with hail the size of cricket balls.
Not Midwest America, but Brisbane, Australia. The most damaging tornado in the nation's history captured on 8mm film.
A funnel touched down in Brisbane, Queensland on the 4th of November 1973. With wind speeds in excess of 300 kilometres an hour, it ploughed through the normally gorgeous suburb of Brisbane, leaving a path length 51 kilometres long.
All of a sudden the lights went off.
500 houses had the roofs torn off. 1,400 homes were obliterated, and a further 500 were declared structurally unsafe. Numerous people were left homeless from this violent storm, and at least one home was said to have been completely swept clean of its foundation, leaving only the water pipes to remain.
Homes had been blown off foundations. Other houses were torn apart.
This tornado is therefore believed to be the most destructive tornado Australia has seen to date, but was given a modest rating of 3 on the Fujita scale. It is miraculous that nobody actually died in this incredibly powerful tornado. The Port Hedland tornado in Western Australia, 1975, was on the ground in front of the Weather Bureau. It was described as a spectacular purple funnel and caused 0 fatalities or damage. On the 13th of November 1976, Sandon, Victoria experienced a tornado outbreak. There were 3 observed tornadoes in the outbreak, but one in particular, which touched down near Sandon, caused mayhem as it travelled along through farmland near the Sandon-Yandoit Road. Described by witnesses as taking on the classic shape of a wedge and being the colour black, this large and what sounded to be a powerful tornado tore along the road where there were 3 cars trying to shelter from its damage. They all were stopped on the side of the road and bracing for its impact. The car in front had 6 people. There was a car in the back and a car in the middle, which had an elderly couple and their dog. The elderly couple's car had been taken by the tornado. It was found a distance away, and the elderly couple had been found a distance away from their car as well, having been taken not only from their car seats but also from their buckled seatbelts. Unfortunately, they were found deceased, and the dog that had been in the car was never found at all. Other damages that occurred from this tornado include damages to farming properties in the area and to trees. And if you look on Google Earth, to this day you can still see sheet metal from the 1976 storm lying on the side of the road and even wrapped around trees. The Northam tornado in 1977 Western Australia is described as our most beautiful tornado due to the way the vortex picked up our red Aussie desert earth and turned a spectacular orange colour. During its life, it travelled 6 to 7 kilometres and displayed its strength by uprooting several large gum trees. In 1978, Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong were experiencing an outbreak of terrible thunderstorms, with one storm producing a violent wedge that devastated the Drummoyne and Hunters Hill areas of metropolitan Sydney. One house had its roof ripped off, and a total of 8 people were injured across the affected areas. In 1985, Port Macquarie was hit by a tornado, which destroyed buildings, threw cars, and caused more than $3 million in damages. In 1989, Ellesmere, New South Wales experienced a storm which produced 3 observed tornadoes, which damaged 25 homes and left 5 completely destroyed. It was Christmas Eve, December 1989 in southeast Queensland, when an enormous supercell with cloud tops as high as 77,000 feet tracked north along the Queensland coastline for over 4 hours duration, travelling an approximate 250 to 300 kilometres distance. It made its way along Brisbane and parts of southeast Queensland, producing a total of 4 observed tornadoes during its existence. And over the city of Redcliffe, one of these tornadoes joined forces with straight-line winds to tear the roof off of 500 houses, damage a further 1,000 homes, and would leave 12 more structurally unsound. This is also the location where 2 lives were taken, and a third tornado hit Bribie Island and flipped a boat where another life was taken. Details and information on this event are hard to come by due to the fact that the storm took out the Bureau's radar, but residents of the area have recounted their experiences online. What can be confirmed is that this tornado was an immensely powerful and traumatic event. There was recounted details of wood beams becoming projectiles and smashing through walls. Torrential rain so loud it almost drowned out the thunderous roars that were heard outside from the wind. And neighbours seeing their houses of their neighbours literally exploding in these winds. I think it's safe to say that everybody who lived in this area at the time will never forget the events that occurred that fateful day on Christmas Eve, December 1989. In 1990, Chisholm ACT was hit by a tornado which destroyed a wooden church and left 37 houses damaged. 5 injuries were also reported. The 1992 Bucca tornado west of Bundaberg was one of Australia's most violent tornadic events in its recorded histories. Severe thunderstorms had been developing throughout the day, with reports of hail the size of cricket balls damaging around 80 homes in South Brisbane by 1:30 p.m, and catamarans were capsized by strong winds to the north in Maroochydore.
Dean Jones just doing his job as a 12-man.
Between 2 to 2:20 p.m, the radar indicated that this system had tornado characteristics. It was at 2:30 p.m. that a tornado touched down at Oakhurst, leaving a damaged trail over sparsely populated country towards Aldershot. Properties were damaged, 3 cattle had to be euthanized, and hundreds of acres of bushland and pine forest were left ravaged. Another cell developed and was detected by radar at 2:20 p.m, located near Gingin at 3:10 p.m. and to the north of Bundaberg at 4 p.m. It was around 3:30 p.m. that this cell produced a tornado which touched down over the Bucca area. At least 9 houses were damaged or destroyed in the Colin-Bucca area by the tornado. 20 cattle were killed. Stones were found embedded in trees. Saplings around 4 to 5 meters long with a 20 centimeter diameter were driven through walls of houses like javelins. A picture frame was located embedded in the wall opposite to where it had been hanging. A resident's fridge was taken up and never located, as was their cat. Their dog was swept away and found the next day with a broken jaw. The neighbours of these people saw parts of their neighbour's house 100 metres in the air. And during this tornado, a 3-ton truck was carried 300 metres away. The first tornado recorded over Oakhurst was rated as an F3 on the Fujita scale, having reached all the indicators of this classification. Whereas the Bucca tornado, causing such extreme chaos and devastation during its lifetime, rated as an F4, possibly an F5 intensity. Given a rating of 2 on the Fujita scale, the 1993 Decabia tornado in New South Wales had a base 200 metres wide and was associated with hail the size of golf balls. It lasted for 20 minutes, destroying 8 houses, damaging 35 others and injuring 2 people. But given the extent of the damages as evidenced in photographs from the event, it's fortunate that more people weren't seriously injured or killed in this storm. On the 20th November 1994, the Sydney area was experiencing severe storms. Part of these storms involved a tornado which hit the Yellow Rock area of the Blue Mountains and also affected Chatswood, uprooting trees and causing damage to numerous homes. This tornado was rated an F0 to F1 on the Fujita scale. It was Easter Sunday, the 16th of April 1995, when a storm went over New South Wales. This storm produced 2 funnels. One of these tornadoes ploughed through the town of Merimbula, leaving 34 people injured, damaging 200 buildings and destroying 15 homes.
And large trees uprooted and snapped like twigs.
All of a sudden, everything started caving in, collapsing, blowing around.
The other tornado damaged the nearby town of Pambula.
Sheets of iron wrapped around trees and power poles like
The Bureau recorded wind speeds between 180 and 240 kilometers an hour. And the damage path for the Merimbula tornado was 100 meters wide and 10 kilometers long. Yet, classic Australian media decided to downplay the whole thing with diminishing terms.
Struck with the force of a mini tornado. The mini tornado.
The mini cyclone tore a random trail of destruction through the holiday town.
This is one of those pieces of footage that really shows the extent that the Australian media really like to downplay these storms.
I could hear the roof being torn off.
When you actually look at the damage, you can clearly see that there was nothing mini about these tornadoes.
Damaged more than 200 houses, leaving about 500 people homeless and the area without power for several hours.
These were 2 full-fledged, large, powerful tornadoes. Quite frankly, looking at the way that these houses were just completely flattened or bulldozed by these winds, I think it's safe to say that it was a bit of an Easter miracle that nobody actually died in this storm.
It's a sobering reminder of just how vulnerable we really are to the awesome power of nature.
3 confirmed tornadoes touched down as part of the largest outbreak of thunderstorms ever documented in New South Wales on the 29th of September 1996. Hail up to 7 centimetres across fell from the skies, and wind gusts were recorded at 156 kilometres an hour. The 3 confirmed tornadoes were sighted in Bundalla, Barebong Nicolandra, and Ilongilong. There were no casualties, and no official ratings were given. Five injuries were sustained during a short-lived tornado that visited the city of Perth, Western Australia in 1996. Associated with a cold front, it had 80 kilometres an hour forward-moving speeds and left a damaged path that was 4 kilometres long and 40 metres wide. This tornado came as fast as it went, lasting for a quick 3 minutes, but leaving an impression on the landscape nonetheless. A tornado travelling through Fremantle, Western Australia in 1999 left several people trapped in an apartment building after it caused the roof to collapse. It left a 100-metre wide track that went for 8 to 9 kilometres or 5 to 5.6 miles. The Grey Stains tornado in New South Wales left some grey stains on the landscape when it occurred as part of a violent supercell that swept over metropolitan Sydney in the early evening of the 3rd November, the year 2000. 3 confirmed tornadoes struck various suburbs including Constitution Hill, Wentworthville, Pendle Hill, and Greystanes. Golf ball-sized hail was associated with the storm system, which downed trees and power lines and caused structural damages. These tornadoes were all rated at a 0 to F1 intensity. The supercell sure did put on a good show. A Sydney to Hobart yacht race was rudely interrupted by a tornadic water spout that occurred on Boxing Day, the 26th of December 2001, off the south coast of New South Wales. Originally a diameter of around 50 metres, it thickened up to around 500 metres. Wind speeds recorded by the boat Nicorette reached up to 100 kilometres or 120 miles per hour. As you can see in the footage, the crew of the Nicorette battled to try and get out of its way. Fortunately, the crew and their boat Nicorette were unharmed, but it was certainly a close call. A small tornado outbreak occurred when 2 tornadoes materialised from a strong cold front on the 18th of May 2002. Which did significant damage to multiple suburbs in South Australia. The first tornado spawned at 6:15 a.m. near Coulter and uprooted trees on farmland over a path of 7 kilometres or 4.3 miles in length. The second spawned 4 hours later at 10 a.m, causing a narrow 2 kilometre or 1.2 mile long damage path through Roslyn and Wattle Park in Adelaide. In the evening, what is debated to have either been a third tornado or severe downburst accompanied a hailstorm at 2 wells and caused considerable damage for a distance of 1,600 feet. A tornado of F2 intensity damaged hundreds of trees and destroyed 2 houses as it tumbled through the town of Nyangala, New South Wales on the 13th of October 2002. Hail up to 6 centimetres was recorded at Welka. On the 18th of May 2003, California Gully residents came face to face with a 500-metre wide tornado, which left 50 homes damaged and 8 fully destroyed along its 7-kilometre journey through Bendigo. Before the 2003 Bendigo tornado, the last really serious tornado that the state of Victoria experienced was the Ferrydale tornado in the year 2000. Witnesses said they'd only ever seen something like that one on American TV. It touched down near Rochester and Carabram, causing havoc as it roared and ripped its way across the landscape with wind speeds of up to 200 kilometers an hour. When it reached Ferrydale, it hit a house which belonged to a family of 5, the Merritt family. They were all sucked out of the house as the walls were ripped apart. The youngest family member, a 17-month-old baby, was sucked out of a window and was found 20 meters away from the house in a paddock, still strapped into her high chair. They were all injured with cuts and other injuries, mostly from airborne debris, but were otherwise fine, which is absolutely incredible. By the way, the media also called this one a mini tornado. On the 18th of January 2003, Canberra, Australia's capital city, was on fire. After the firefighters got the blaze under control and it otherwise had run its course, experts moved in to inspect the damages, but they were rather puzzled by some of the damages they found. In amongst the ash and scorched landscape, they were coming across strange sights, like large, fully grown gum trees that had been torn up out of the ground and thrown a distance away. There were half blown out houses with little to no fire damage. And the damage right in the middle of the fire path wasn't actually fire damage, so what was it? Well, it was these discrepancies that prompted a detailed analysis by a knowledgeable and hard-working meteorologist. They considered the factors such as the path of the strange damages, radar images, weather data, and other data, and they were able to confirm an absolutely extraordinary and frightening phenomena had occurred during these fires. That phenomena is called pyrotornadogenesis, or in other words, a fire tornado. Now, perhaps you're wondering how such a thing could occur. Well, I'll try to walk you through it briefly. A wildfire moves across the landscape. As the fire burns up the plants in its path, it releases a superheated column of gas and smoke into the atmosphere. The moisture that had been within the plants also releases up into the atmosphere above, and these two things mix and create what is known as cumulus clouds. Now, as the atmosphere in this area becomes more unstable, what forms next is known as cumulonimbus clouds. These are also known as storm clouds. This means that at this point, This fire has actually created its own storm system above it, which is actually capable of producing its own weather. These clouds can produce such weather as rain. They can create hailstorms. They can even create their own electricity, which means that they can create their own thunder and lightning, which is actually often the cause for the fire spreading. And they also can create tornadoes. Now, just to recap, the clouds at the top, the white fluffy ones, they're called cumulus. The heavier, darker, lower clouds are called cumulonimbus. And when these clouds are created from a fire, they become what is known as pyrocumulonimbus. And it is these pyrocumulonimbus clouds which can create the phenomena of pyrotornadogenesis, or in other words, it is these pyrocumulonimbus clouds above fires that can actually create fire tornadoes, or pyrotornadoes. And that is exactly what happened in Canberra in 2003 during their bushfires, as you'll see in this next video that a local filmed when he noticed something quite strange about the flames of the fire.
Oh my God.
Holy Jesus. This is bad news.
High praise to Tom Bates for capturing that incredible footage of the tornado wedge churning violently in front of the light of the flames. Considering the damage indicators reached peak wind speeds of 200 km an hour and a 450 meter diameter, this tornado was rated at EF2, peaking EF3 intensity. I did also want to mention, while we're talking about fire tornadoes, that there was evidence of one perhaps occurring during the 2009 bushfires, the Black Saturday fires in Victoria. There was evidence of large gum trees being uprooted and wind structure to buildings. There's also a video.
A fire tornado is now ripping through tens of acres in seconds. At well beyond 1,000 degrees, it makes an oven of earth and air. This firestorm can now kill from 200 meters.
Having been there in those fires, I can confirm that over Mount Donabuang there was pyrocumulonimbus clouds up to the sky, crimson red in colour with purple lightning. Also visiting the pine plantation in Arbourthorne afterwards, where I came from, they were all standing up like burnt matchsticks, except a clearly defined path where they were just flattened to the ground or otherwise snapped. So to me, from my research, that looks like tornado damage, and I just think that's very interesting. Those fires were incredibly intense. More than 70 homes were affected by a tornado in the suburb of Noble Park on the 9th of June 2004. Wind speeds were estimated to be up to 180 kilometers an hour, and the damaged path was 32 kilometers long and up to 200 meters wide. On the 20th of January 2005, during a severe thunderstorm, the F1 to F2 rated tornado was confirmed to have touched down in Coonabarabra, New South Wales. The tornado formed at 4:30 p.m. and travelled over 5 kilometres to the southeast, uprooting lots of trees and scouring the ground. A tornado ploughed through the area of Broken Hill in New South Wales on the 6th of November 2005. 100 homes were damaged in its wake. La Perouse, New South Wales was visited by a waterspout in 2006, which mesmerised as it was caught on camera climbing up out of the water and up onto the land as if it were sentient. It proceeded to the town where it caused F1 level damages to buildings and tore down power lines. In the early hours of the morning on the 7th of August 2006, a tornado hit the suburb of Les Chenolles in Bunbury, Western Australia. It damaged 60 houses, with 7 of those having their roofs completely ripped off. 2 people were injured, and a damaged path 200 metres wide and 2 kilometres long was observed in the aftermath. A tropical depression moved across Northern Territory, and intense damage was observed to have happened in the Kakadu National Park at Merry River Station on the 1st of March 2007. 2 caravans were destroyed and numerous eucalypts and ironwoods were uprooted. A land spout formed over farmland in the Yuyangs on the 14th of May 2007. It had an estimated diameter of 50 to 100 metres and no damage was reported. Storm chaser Jimmy DeGuara caught on camera a large multi-vortex tornado near Lismore, New South Wales on the 26th of October 2007. The tornado, part of a supercellular storm system, produced golf ball-sized hail and took out the wall of a church, tore the roof off of 20 homes, and tossed a piece of debris into a power substation, causing an explosion that left 3,000 homes without power. I was given permission to post part of that video here. There's the debris right there about to crash into the power substation. If you want to watch the full video of the actual explosion, click the link in the top left corner to go to Jimmy DeGuara's video. The tornado was on the ground for around 25 minutes, moving east towards Dunoon, and made news across Australia and around the world. December 20th, 2007, large, short-lived Ballarat tornado caused no damage but gifted storm chasers with a spectacular photo opportunity. A tornado hit the southern region of Perth around 7:30 AM on the 9th of June 2008. It affected over 130 homes, and an aged care facility in Coolangub was evacuated due to the roof having been torn off by the strong winds. A tornado crossed the land between Nimitabel and Cooma in New South Wales on the 23rd of December 2008. Photograph taken by Heather Leckie of The Wedge really shows how large tornadoes can get here in the land down under. A tornado hit a farm nearby to Atherton, Queensland on the 7th of February 2010. It damaged farming equipment and ripped up corn in the fields.
Oh my gosh, look what it's doing to my corn!
With advancements in technology, tornado recordings increased over the next few years. So now we'll do a spotlight of the tornadoes that occurred in Australia between the years 2010 and 2015.
Coming down. Whoa!
Now we're in the modern times, the 2020s. We've survived those tornadoes relatively unscathed. There's just one thing though. The tornadoes, well, they've come here with us. And they don't seem to be showing any signs of slowing down.
The Bureau has confirmed it was a tornado that ripped through Warren Ponds, destroying at least 4 homes and leaving dozens more badly damaged.
It was a tornado that hit near Geelong and caused that damage.
In 10 minutes of terror, a vortex let debris rush through the air at speeds of 160 kilometres an hour. The powerful wind struck in the middle of the night, showering Martin Tracy and his wife with glass.
I was awake and just heard this mighty rush and a bang.
A short-lived but fierce tornado impacted parts of Horsham.
Chester Hill, 8:07 this morning. Breeze flung through the air, a warning of what's to come. Watch the building as Mother Nature delivers a devastating blast.
There are reports at least one person has been injured.
The northeast of Armidale was hit especially hard by the tornado that tore through the town about 10 p.m. last night. That's where roofs were torn clean off and trees were completely uplifted.
I don't think I've ever been so scared.
Imagine 1 minute you're eating dinner at the table and the next your entire home is destroyed.
Yeah, the house was gone within 15 minutes. It was all over Red Rover in about 15 minutes.
It was children in its path,
school children run for their lives, sheltering from a tornado that hit hard and fast. Furiously gathering power as it ripped through Bunbury and hurled debris into the air. This is the same youth centre just minutes later. The structure collapsed with about 50 kids inside. Incredibly, every child escaped serious injury.
It's like a freight train. It was just unreal.
This roaring sound, roaring, it was scary, really scary.
The freak system smashing the city about 2 hours south of Perth.
So there's the facts. Australia does get tornadoes. Tornadoes happen across the entire planet, along with lots of other natural disasters. Storms have been happening since the beginning of time, and they always will happen. So you'd think that we would be prepared for them. But the fact remains that many Australians still don't even believe that we get tornadoes here, or they believe that our tornadoes are small and insignificant. This might be because the media continues to use terms such as mini when they describe our tornadoes. This may be unintentional, but it is hugely misleading, causing the public to not realise that we are in fact in danger from these storms. And if we are not adequately prepared for them, we could lose our homes and our lives should another large, dangerous tornado hit Australia, which has happened before and could easily and probably will happen again. Are we prepared for tornadoes here? No, we're not. Many of our houses here are built without storm cellars or basements. In fact, I would think it's safe to say almost all of our houses are built without storm cellars or basements. Meteorologists in Australia are trying really hard to get the message out there to us, and they do try to warn us of tornadoes before the fact. But I believe that there is funding issues that is causing some roadblocks for them. Whatever the case is, we often are not getting the warnings in time, and these tornadoes as far as I know. We don't yet have a digital system in place that is going to reliably send people messages so that they know a tornado is on the way. I did email government representatives and ask them what measures they have in place to warn people of tornadoes, and they said that they are planning to bring out a digital system that's going to warn people of tornadoes, but they haven't done it yet. So right now, we're living very unprepared. I suppose the question now is, will the public government be able to get prepared in time for these dangerous tornadoes before the next one hits? I suppose only time will tell.